Paul Kersey heads back to New York City to visit an old friend, only to find out that the city's even worse than it was in the first one. Let's talk about it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the third Death Wish film, aptly titled Death Wish 3. This film came out in November 1st of 1985. It had a $9 million budget, and upon release that year, it made $16 million. It's rated R, and it's an hour and 32 minutes long. Now, Michael Winner, who directed the first two Death Wish films, had directed a few films in between Death Wish 2, which came out in 82, and this film. Both flopped. So he was more than happy to come back to do Death Wish 3 because he needed a hit, and they figured since the first two films were hits, this is a surefire hit. And it did make about the same as the second film, so this did make some money as well. Charles Bronson was back. Around this time, Charles Bronson had signed a 3-picture deal with Cannon Films. This was the first of the 3 pictures that he ended up doing for Cannon. In between this, or before this film, he did the movie The Evil That Men Do, and after this, Murphy's Law, which I actually like that film too. I haven't seen it in a while. I'm trying to track that down and get a hold of that. I want to watch that film. So this came out in between those two films, sandwiched in between them. Deborah Rafflin plays Catherine Davis, a love interest for Paul Kersey. She's a district attorney in this film. And Ed Lautner plays Richard Stryker. He is the police chief at this precinct in the middle of what I would consider hell on earth. Gavin O'Hurley plays Fraker, the main gang leader. And he is Dan O'Hurley's son. Yes, the old man from RoboCop and the evil mask maker from Halloween 3. He is his son, and he's in this film as well as the main gang leader, the only gang leader. And Alex Winters makes his first film appearance as Hermosa, and he was Bill in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He was in The Lost Boys, etc., etc. He's directed some stuff too, so he shows up in this film as well. And basically, being in this film, we see Paul Kersey on a bus traveling into New York City. We see establishing shots of the city, then we cut to this old man in this apartment in the middle of this rundown part of the city, like real shithole type stuff. And he's getting harassed by these gang members, and they set him up. They want to kill him, pretty much. And they end up killing him. And Paul Kersey arrives at his apartment just in time to find he's still alive. He says, "Take care of my stuff for me," and he dies. And the cops arrest Kersey because they think he's the one who did it, which right now he's going under the name Kimball while he's in the city, because he's not supposed to come back to New York City, as we all know from the first film. And he gets taken to jail, and this is where we meet Stryker, the police chief, and he remembers Kersey. He goes, "You're not Kimball, you're Kersey. I remember you when they brought this vigilante in back from the first film, shot in the leg, and what are you doing in town?" And he explains he's here to visit an old friend, and that he doesn't do the vigilante thing anymore. And we've come to find out through their conversation that Stryker has been keeping a tab on him, and he realizes that he's gone pro. Like, he was in Kansas City, a bunch of thugs got killed, in another city. So it looks like after the second film, Paul Kersey has gone from place to place just killing scumbags. And he puts him in jail, though. Like, he's trying to lean on him to get what he wants. And while he's in prison, we're in the cell, we're introduced to Fraker, because he's in there too. And him and Kersey have it out a little bit, and then he gets released, Fraker. And then the police chief calls Kersey and then wants to work together. He wants Kersey to start doing his thing again to try to help get the crime under control, to work with him and give his cops a couple busts to make it look good in the press. But for him, just, he'll just play it off in the press as scumbags killing scumbags. Kersey obliges. He goes back to the apartment building where his friend was killed, and one of this other older gentleman who's also a vet, and Kersey's friend was a vet. They actually served together in Korea. And this other gentleman served in World War II with Kersey's friend. Gives him the lowdown in the area, what has happened. The neighborhood used to be nice. Now it's deteriorated into basically a shithole. And they're harassed all the time, but they have nowhere to go. And Kersey, before we know it, Kersey is taking out scumbags. And he actually uses a plot device from the novel. He buys a car only as bait. And he uses it to send a message. He parks the car right out front. He goes to eat dinner with this older couple in the building. And he hears them breaking into the car. He goes outside and kills both of the punks and goes back in and continues eating. And this is what sets forth the war that's going to be waged. Now, we go from scene to scene of Kersey killing some of the bad guys, and they're taking revenge on the older people. Matter of fact, the one guy in the building, a younger guy who lives there with his wife gets raped and killed. And that's when things really kick into high gear. And by the end of the film, the last 10, 15 minutes is nothing but all-out war in this area. Now, I like Death Wish 3. It's actually the one I watched the most when I was a kid. I used to watch it over and over and over again because basically, nowadays, if you're thinking back on it now as an adult, it's basically like Paul Kersey at this point turned into the Punisher. He goes from place to place killing bad guys, just like the Punisher did in those films in this TV and the Netflix series. And that's all Paul Kersey. And now he's avenging his friend, and he's helping these elderly people out. But really, he has no loved ones left. It's just him. Now, he does have a love interest in the film, played by Deborah Raffer, and she plays a district attorney who helps get him out of jail because they're basically violating his rights by keeping him there. They didn't charge him with anything. And she likes him, and they go out on a date and end up making love. And she ends up getting killed by the gang members, too, unfortunately. He never has luck with any loved ones in these films. But really, by this point, he's just an executioner, and that's what it is. Now, the action scenes are fine. Michael Winner shoots the film nicely. Funny enough, besides the establishing shots of New York City in the film, most of this film was shot in England. That was a budgetary reason. It was cheaper to film in England at that point. So they did their establishing shots in New York City. They shot that first, and they went to England for 5 or 6 weeks and shot the rest of it there. They just dressed it up like America. I like this film. It's a fun, just R-rated B action film. Charles Bronson's good in it, like he was the first 2 films. He's solid as always. All the actors around him are good. Gavin O'Hurley, Fraker, plays a terrific scumbag. You just want to walk up to this guy and punch him in the face. That's how much of an asshole he comes off as. Like, he's that bad. Maybe a little over the top. And this movie overall is over the top. I mean, there's scenes where Paul Kersey's right out in the open shooting guys. There's like 6 guys shooting at him. He's right out in the open, and they can't hit him, and he kills all of them. I mean, it's that over the top. But it's fun. They keep the pace moving. It's only an hour and 32 minutes long. It's just it's like one of those hard R-rated movies you can sit down and just watch and have a good time with. There is a rape scene in the film, unfortunately. It's like Michael Winner was obsessed with rape in these films. It's like, I didn't need that in this film. I already know these guys are bad. They're assholes. They're scumbags. And then to throw that in there, it just seemed unnecessary. But again, it's in there. It's like a Death Wish staple in the first 3 films. Other than that, it's a fine sequel to the first 2 films. I would give the third one a 7 out of 10. I would give Death Wish 3 7 out of 10, definitely. I think it's good enough to get that rating. It's just a brainless R-rated action film. You could have fun with it. Besides some of the rape scene, obviously I could do without that, but whatever. Bronson was 64 when they filmed this movie. And then he went on to do part 4 and 5. But yeah, Bronson was already in his 60s by the time this one rolled around. Actually, some of the soundtrack, if you ever seen part 2, and I said in my part 2 review, Jimmy Page did a score for that film. They reused some of that music for this film. You could tell right off the bat, but Jimmy Page actually was not paid to come back to score the film. They just reused some of the score from the first film. Other than that, I don't have any more trivia. Yes, a 7 out of 10 for Death Wish 3. Have you ever seen the third part of the Death Wish franchise? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I greatly appreciate that. I'll be back next week with some more reviews. Have a great weekend. I'll see you later. Bye.